Hi everyone, thanks for joining our session. My name is Andres Dominguez. I'm an ethics fellow at the Alan Turing Institute, and I'm joined by Semeli Hajiloisu, who's a researcher in data justice and global ethical futures. We're both members of the ethics and responsible innovation team at the Turing. And we're very excited about this work on the international front at the Turing. We've been working with our partners UNESCO and the International Telecommunications Union. During the last 8 months or so, we have been working on what we call the Observatory on AI ethics and governance. This was officially launched last month in a flagship event by UNESCO called the Forum on the Ethics of AI. And it's now live, and you can already interact with it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the story behind it, the rationale behind it. We're also pleased to have joining us remotely with us, Gabriela Ramos from UNESCO. She couldn't be here in person today, but she's joining us via video. So a little bit of context on this work. I would like to begin highlighting the fact that artificial intelligence, as we know it today, is a globally embedded technology. And as such, it has far-reaching implications across the planet. So very much like the internet, AI systems and applications are being deployed and used widely beyond the countries where they are being produced. But also the very building blocks of AI are highly widespread. So from the data needed for training AI systems like ChatGPT, which are labeled and cleaned by data workers in the Global South, to the minerals and metals that need to be extracted to build the chips and data centers that power AI, we know that the value chain of AI is inherently global and distributed. And this is the reason why governing AI calls for a genuinely globally inclusive and intercultural approach to ethics and governance. I would like to show you this map. This is an interesting map by OECD, which shows the concentration of AI policies and instruments around the world. You can see there's been a lot of movement and activity around this space. There's been a flurry of instruments coming out. This is data just from the last couple of years. And you will be familiar with some of these. In the previous session, also touched a little bit on some of these instruments. The EU AI Act, which was just passed last week, but there's many other normative instruments out there that touch on how to govern and tame AI, how to implement safeguards, how to track the development and adoption of AI in different regions. There's an index in Latin America. There's an observatory in Africa. So it's a very busy and dynamic space. But what this map also shows is that the map is also very uneven. So there are areas in the world where perhaps some countries are lagging behind or where there's less activity in this space. And it is in the context of the conversation around governance that the UNESCO recommendation on the ethics of artificial intelligence emerged. It was launched in 2021 and is the only instrument out there that has been globally endorsed. So this was unanimously adopted by 193 member states. And it focuses on human rights and advancing responsible AI innovation, and is guided by fundamental principles and values. I won't go into depth on this because Gabriela is going to tell us more about the history of the recommendation and its motivations. But I'd like to say that just to say now that the recommendation has encouraged a lot of conversations and activity in countries where where very little has been discussed on responsible AI and ethics, and has brought ethics into the forefront of the discourse on AI. So it's a very important achievement in the governance space. And this is where the observatory comes in. So the recommendation sets out a path for responsible AI, but it's not itself a recipe. So it actually brings up the question of how do we implement these nice principles and values set in the recommendation, and how do we operationalize them? How do we bring them into practice? And this is a very difficult question. So that's the idea of the observatory. It is there to encourage an intercultural dialogue on ethics and share good practices, share tools, develop tools, establish a laboratory of experiences and toolkits to advance responsible innovation. I would like to also tell you a little bit of the building blocks, what makes the observatory what it is. One aspect of it is this idea of readiness assessment, which is about understanding what's the current situation in terms of readiness to adopt the recommendation, in terms of installed capacity, what is the existing talent in a country, what is the cultural environment, the socio-economic environment locally to advance the goals of the recommendation. And what's unique about this process is that it situates AI in a socio-technical landscape. So it has this socio-technical lens to it. And there's a number of countries that are now piloting this process, and Semeli is going to tell us more about that. The second aspect of it has to do with the life cycle of AI itself, and is a way of looking from end to end in the process of design, development, deployment, use of AI, and identify potential areas of concern, potential risks, and also benefits. And it's just one of the tools that is already out there this is oriented towards governments and civil servants in particular. So I will stop there for now, and we will now hear from Gabriela Ramos, who is going to tell us about the recommendation and the process behind building the observatory. So if we can play the video, please.
It is a pleasure to join you today. I'm excited to talk to you about the Global AI Ethics and Governance Observatory, which we developed with the fantastic collaboration of Alan Turing Institute and the International Telecommunication Union. And this is in the context of our broader work on AI ethics and governance and our recommendations on the ethics of AI. And we know it. ChatGPT and other generative AI tools may have captured the imagination of people around the world over the past year or so, and has served as a wake-up call for governments and people to finally act to put in place institutions and regulations to build capacity and to govern these increasingly powerful and ubiquitous technologies. UNESCO has been working on these challenges for years. As I mentioned, the UNESCO recommendation on the ethics of AI was adopted by 193 member states in November of 2021, and is the first and so far the only global agreed normative instruments in this domain. And back then, we were in a lonely place. Governments were not very interested in the ethics of AI. But now, with the exponential capacities of these technologies enhanced, with the impact that we know that they have, everybody's talking about ethics. And we are pleased that we are also working together with the G7, with the G20, with GPI, and other international organizations that see this approach as a useful one. But we are proud that with the Alan Turing Institute, we have been working since the beginning, and we have been accompanying each other in this important endeavor to bring ethics to the technological debate. David Leslie is part of our high-level expert group on AI ethics, and also of the AI Experts Without Borders network, and helped launch the recommendation back then in 2021. Andres, Semeli, Sabiha, and Morgan have also been an integral part to developing this observatory that is really trying to explain better, to inform better what are these technologies all about. And if anything is clear about the technological revolution we're living through, is that things are going very fast. Changes are very deep, and we need to understand better where the impacts of AI are happening across society, what are the sources of concern, and how countries are doing, or what are they doing to address these impacts, and where do they need support. In our second Global Forum on the Ethics of AI held in Slovenia last month, together with our colleagues at the Turing Institute and ITU, we launched the Observatory as a platform for knowledge, expert insights, and good practices on the ethics and governance of AI. This observatory will host very important information, for example, the AI readiness assessment that we are doing with more than 50 countries and growing. And so we will have information that is contextualized, but at the same time, we will be measuring things that are not only related to the computational capacity of countries, to the skills, or to the access to the technologies, but also the societal issues, the cultural issues, the context issues that are so important to understand how do we link with these technologies. We are going to be advancing the ethical governance of AI also, and providing this information to everybody that wants to connect with the observatory. We will also provide concrete policy support and research for how to get to this ethical governance, showcasing articles contributed by experts from our networks, like our Women for Ethical AI, but also from David, Sabiha, Morgan, and many colleagues from the Turing, Stuart Russell's, Urs Gasser, to just name a few. And of course, if you're an expert and have something to share, be welcome to send us your contributions to the observatory. It's about understanding the technologies, but more importantly, it's about understanding better the policy tools we have, the incentives we have, the investment we have, to really shape the outcomes of the technological revolution. We cannot control the technologies, but we can ensure that the ecosystem and the incentives are there so that the outcomes are positive. And in many ways, this is not about a debate of specific technologies so much as it is one about the kind of societies we want to live in, and in concrete terms, how to get there. So the observatory will be benefiting from the work that we're doing with so many experts, and we hope that this is going to become an indispensable global resource as all of you around the world try to get to grips with the implementation on how to advance responsible and ethical governance. Thank you for your attention, and I wish you fruitful discussions.
And now we will hear from Semeli, who will take us through the observatory, and hopefully we'll have some time at the end for questions as well.
Okay, great. So as Gabriela Ramos mentioned, our aim in co-developing the observatory with UNESCO and the ITU was really to develop a multi-dimensional platform. So it wasn't only about displaying country data, but it was also really to provide a deep dive into the specific contexts of each country. And what stands out about the observatory and what's special about the observatory is that through the exercise of the RAM, there's actually been a lot of activity and a lot of mobilization, especially from national governments, to really look into what the challenges, the advantages, and maybe like what the gaps are that are specific to their socio-technical context of each country. So as mentioned, there are over, oops, I'm just gonna go back. I think we're in. Okay, we have a slide missing, but it's okay. There are over 50 countries currently implementing the RAM, and what's really great from that is to see how it's really an impressive effort to look into and examine the local AI ethics and governance landscape of each country. And it also means that we get to have an insight into countries that may have otherwise been less visible into these conversations. So the observatory is really an important space to hold knowledge exchange, expert insights, and also general learnings from the RAM. It holds the AI experts, the AI Governance and Ethics Lab, which brings together really important pieces around learning from practice, framing the issues of AI ethics and governance, and also exploring policy recommendations. So as the name suggests, the lab is intended to be a space for experimentation and knowledge exchange. The aim is really to cultivate an intercultural and inclusive dialogue so that we're not kind of setting a predetermined pathway to navigating this landscape. And finally, as Gabriela mentioned, it hosts and it supports UNESCO's expert groups, including the Women for Ethical AI and AI Experts Without Borders, which are really integral to this work as well. So key to capturing the specific and the multi-layered context of each country in a holistic way is this socio-technical approach, which is guided by the 5 dimensions of the RAM, as they're shown here. So it's really about looking at how the social and the cultural dimension, for example, intersects and is in constant conversation with the technical dimension. And this approach, the socio-technical approach, is really key to framing and understanding AI, not as this kind of isolated technical phenomenon, but rather as a technology that is continuously shaped and informed by our histories and also our current social structures. So we're really looking forward to continuing work on the observatory, and this is definitely a work in progress, and there's a lot of, there's kind of several work streams already in place that are looking to expand on what's on the observatory so far. And so some of the work streams that we're working on is looking at how we can involve more voices and represent more voices in the observatory, especially from civil society organizations, as right now there's quite a few perspectives from government. And finally, we're really interested in looking into and kind of maybe challenging the general conception of who counts as an AI expert, to see how we can learn from and listen to the insights and the lived experiences from communities that are actually impacted by AI systems every day, and make sure that their voices are represented and are part of this discussion. So to close, this project has definitely been a team effort, so a big thank you to the teams at UNESCO and the ITU for all of their work, but especially to the rest of the team at the Turing who's been working on the observatory and for all of their amazing work. So if you'd like to learn more about the project, please feel free to scan the QR code or follow the URL that's shown here to take a look at the project page. And we also have time for questions in case, there are any questions. Thank you so much.
Questions. I have one question in via Slido. You've still got time to put one in via Slido. Or if you're in the room, you can put your hand up and I'll come out. So are there any questions in the room first? Okay. Yes, one on the front row. Can we get a microphone? Sorry, microphone people. It's always on the front row if you're at the back. And if you're at the front, it's always at the back.
Oh, hello. I'm Nicholas Beale, and I chair the Lord Mayor's Ethical AI Initiative, which is an initiative by the present rather scientifically minded Lord Mayor to encourage people to be trained in the ethical deployment of AI, particularly through their professional organisations. And my question is, to what extent are you working with global investors? Because this has now become quite a hot topic. There was a big dust-up at the Apple shareholders meeting on February the 29th. And I think that they have quite an important voice in helping to encourage the tech giants and other large companies to work in a responsible manner.
Marvellous, excellent question. So would you like to take that one? And then, in fact, I will give you the one from Slido because it's different but related. The Slido question is, how does this link with the OECD AI Policy Observatory? So it seems that there's a different questions, but both asking about partnerships. So it might be easier if the two of you would like to take them together or linked.
Yeah, both excellent questions. To answer the first question about the involvement of businesses and investors, the principle and the idea behind the observatory and the efforts from UNESCO, and also what we bring from our perspective in conceptualizing this work, is that AI ethics and governance is a multi-stakeholder question. So if you go to the observatory now, you will find that there's a space for different networks in there. There's a space for academic experts, there's a space for civil society organizations. And there's something called the Business Council, which is, UNESCO is really emphasizing the need to have the private sector involved in the conversations around AI ethics and governance. So we can't have conversations around taming AI and governing AI without the participation of the private sector. Not only the companies that develop models and the big technological solutions, but also SMEs and innovators that are perhaps at the downstream of AI developing applications. So I think that would be my answer to you with regards to the involvement of the private sector. The second question was about
the
OECD
AI Policy
Observatory.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's interesting is that, so there are a few observatories out there. Many of you will be familiar with the OECD Observatory. And the UNESCO Observatory actually gets a lot of, feeds itself from data from different sources, and one of them is actually the OECD Observatory. In the process of doing the readiness assessment, the idea of this process is not just to showcase data in the observatory, and that's perhaps one difference from the OECD Observatory, but this process is about encouraging and galvanizing action. So the process of doing the RAM has actually started a lot of activity in the space, and that's one of the main goals. So one differentiation would be, rather than a showcase of data or mapping of what is out there, is about encouraging a space for dialogue and action in this space.
There's now, of course, a lot of great questions coming in, and we have literally 2 minutes left. So I'm afraid I'm going to pick just one, because I think it might be a great conversation starter with everybody else here and possibly some of you online, is how can civic society and third sector organisations engage with the observatory? So this is your chance to put your pitch to get everybody to come and work with you.
Yeah, definitely. I think, as Andres mentioned, the kind of overall aim of the observatory is really to emphasize this multi-stakeholder approach. So civil society organizations are definitely a big part of that. And as we kind of mentioned in the we really want to continue expanding on the observatory, and kind of as one of the next steps is really to develop a civil society organization kind of repository that brings together all of these different organizations that are working at the forefront of these issues right now, so that there can really be kind of like a connected network that can, entirely address the topics of the observatory. So it's definitely on the radar for further developing it.
And where can people come and find you? Are you sticking around after this session? Are you going to be in the drinks reception this evening? People keen to come and engage, or should they look you up online?
Yes, we will be around. Please come and speak to us. Please also engage with the observatory. We have lots of resources out there. Is a place that we want to make it's an open invitation for people to engage with it. From if you're an academic, if you're from public sector, if you're from business, civil society organizations. The idea is to promote conversation and dialogue in this space. So please engage with us. We're going to be here and visit the observatory.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Semele and Andres.
Thank you.
Can I?